All right, we're getting ready to hit back. So normally I'll use my recovery drink while I train, but if it's a big body part like legs or back, and I know it's going to be really difficult like today is, I'll go ahead and add an extra scoop of carb as well. So, so the recovery, 1 scoop, and then the carb, 1 scoop. There you go. All right, hi everybody, John Meadows here, and today we're doing a giant set back workout. Now, Milos Sarcev, arguably the greatest IFBB coach in history, was really big on giant sets and really putting a lot of blood into the muscle, also loading it with a heavy weight, just really exhausting muscle fibers. So people have asked me, what do I think about giant sets? Is it a good stimulus for growth? Absolutely it is, and we'll get into why as we go. But so anyways, this is going to be a tough, nasty workout. Giant set training, you do have to put a little thought into it. I like to see different kind of movement patterns. So if you do, for example, let's say you're training chest. Let's say you do a bench press, and then your next exercise is a dumbbell press, and then maybe you do push-ups. It's still effective, but it's the same pattern. I'd rather somebody mix it up. Muscles don't all originate and insert at the same points. Classic case on that chest example would be your chest. Fibers attached to your clavicle, your sternum, whatever. So it's different. So for back, what we started with was a pronated grip, and we're pulling up this way. So that's going to be more for your rhomboids, your lower traps, your rear delts, basically rear delt all the way across to the other side. So I would call that kind of your upper back thickener. We can change our grip and affect different muscles. So that's the movement pattern here. And then we went to the pullover. I like the decline here. Normally, we only pull these to the top of our forehead, but since we're on decline, you can actually come up a little bit more. But this is going to work a little differently. Now it's not going to work your rhomboids, your traps. Now we're working teres muscles, maybe some serratus, a little bit of upper lat, but different musculature, different movement pattern. So we went from here, kind of to here, and then we moved over here to this pull down machine. Now, if you noticed, I was taking a neutral grip and I was driving my elbow straight down. I'm trying to engage more lat. So we just did kind of our teres in the upper area of our lat, our back. So now I'm trying to shift it more into lats. That's why I was driving straight down, okay? So again, a different movement pattern. And then we finished with a heavy dumbbell row, all right? So again, a little more lat heavy. For me personally, I need a little bit more thickness down here. So 2 of the 4 movements were done to emphasize that area. You could change the exercise order and emphasize whatever you want to emphasize, but I just wanted you to kind of see why we were doing these 4 different exercises. They all complement each other. We're not doing the same thing over and over. It's not a normal row, then a dumbbell row, then a machine row. We're all done slightly different to affect different musculature. And that's particularly important with your back because it's such a different group of muscles. There's so many different muscles across your back. But anyways, that's why we're doing what we're doing. You might have noticed on the first exercise, I increased the weight. What I'm trying to do is tough sets of 8 on each exercise. So I want the 8th rep to be tough. So the last set, it wasn't real tough, so I moved the weight up. I want you to do that on all the exercises. In terms of how long I'm waiting to go to the next exercise, it'll take about 20 seconds. You don't have to get there like immediately. It's okay, recover some strength, catch your breath a little bit. This type of workout's very aerobically demanding too. So, I'm out of breath. I just did 4 hard sets in a row. And it's good to develop your endurance to a point because I think a lot of people can't push themselves deep into sets because their heart and lungs give out before their muscles do. They're just breathing so hard, they fail. And I think there's more work left in their muscles. So this kind of stuff is good to do on occasion. Now, you don't want to do stuff like this all the time because the really higher volume, aerobically demanding work can also kind of overtrain you a little bit too. So there's a strategic way to do this. So we're getting ready to do our 3rd round. So what I'm going to do now is the weights all feel about right. So I think it's going to be a tough 8 on each exercise this round. All right, so we're getting ready to start round number 4. But so the question would be, how often should you do something like this? Well, I like to do it like if I was going to do something like this, it'd probably be once a month for a body part. Not that there's wrong with doing it more often. That's just how I like to sequence it. Sometimes sometimes you may be short on time. You want to move a little faster. Sometimes you just might want to do something a little different. Train like this, although it's hard, it can be really fun. So, you know, if I'm training legs 6 times in a month or 7 times in a month, I might do 1 or 2 workouts like this. I really enjoy these. I think it's very effective. See, the other thing is people will say, well, you know, you're not going as heavy as you can on all the exercises because you're fatigued. And this is where people don't understand the basic fundamentals of building muscle. When it comes to building muscles, you're really looking at building muscle fibers, and you do that by mechanical tension on the fiber. So the way you do that is, number 1, you should have good activation. Activation can come in the form of the amount of weight that you're using, but that's not the end-all be-all. How many powerlifters have you seen just using tremendous weights, but they're not real big, at least compared to a big bodybuilder who's much weaker. But then also mind-muscle connection. So it's the amount of weight that you use which forces muscle fibers into action, but it's also that mind-muscle connection. This is why you see people getting more benefit out of sometimes what is perceived as a lighter set, because that mind-muscle connection is tuned and they're firing more muscle fibers. Now, you have to load it with sufficient weight. So what does that mean? That means the weight's got to be heavy enough so that you can't just fly through the rep and explode with it. You get a lot of activation that way, but you don't load the muscle fibers. If you did, you could just jump up and down all day. That gives you maximum activation, but it doesn't load the fibers. So the weight's got to be heavy enough so that you move a little slower through the range of motion. And that's where you get into this whole force-velocity relationship. But just the important point is the weight needs to be heavy enough so that you just can't go firing away with and throwing the bar out of your hands. You know, 6, 8, 10 reps that you have to work for. And now here's the part where people are not getting it, okay? Not only do you have to activate the fiber and load it, but you have to fatigue muscle fibers. So when you're taking a little bit of a break, but then you can keep going, and then you keep going, you're creating a tremendous amount of fatigue in the fibers. That's a form of overload in itself, okay? It does create a lot of damage to the muscle. So this is why you have to be real careful on how you build your training for this. So you're activating the muscle, you're picking exercises that you feel good, you're loading the muscles with what is perceived as a heavy weight, and then you fatigue the muscle fibers. That's the third part that people are missing. And again, that's why some powerlifters are really strong. They're not real big. They don't really fatigue anything, but they're strong. So anyways, activate, load, and exhaust. That's what we're all about. And this type of training really does all those things. And that's the fundamentals on how to build muscle. Then you just got to figure out how much of this stuff you do, how much is too much, how much is not enough. So that being said, last round, round number 4.
Come on, Sid. One more.
Ooh. I like how small the handles are on that. That's why I'm not using my straps. The grip feels really good on those. These I use straps. See how thick these handles are? Plus they roll, so it'll roll right out of your hand. on fire. Finally, the dumbbell row. Man, 4 sets. Now, one thing I forgot to mention was in between each round, take your time. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Take your time because that's very demanding. Okay, so just a couple of take-home points. Pick exercises that you feel real well. So you're going to be ahead of the game when it comes to mind muscle contraction. Pick exercises that complement each other. Don't do the same movement pattern over and over and over. Okay? And then I would say, based on how well you recover, how sore you get, this is where it's going to take you got to get a little bit of experience. That's going to help you determine how often you do this. Some people like to do it real frequently. I like to do them about once a month per body part. The other question is, who's this type of workout appropriate for? Is it appropriate for beginners? I would say absolutely not. Beginners should stick with straight sets. There's no need to do something like this. Intermediates, I tend to look at this as more as intermediate to advanced in terms of who should be using this. And what about natural versus enhanced? I think that's always an important point to discuss too. Just remember, if you're natural, you don't have the recovery through the PEDs that the other guys have. So if you get extremely sore, then instead of doing 4 rounds, you might want to do 3. You might even only want to do 2. So I would adjust the amount of rounds that you do based on how you feel afterwards. If you feel demolished and you can't move something for a week, you've probably done a little too much. So this is a good technique for naturals, also for people who aren't natural. The naturals are going to have to be cautious with the amount of volume though, because it is a lot of volume. We did 16 sets that weren't easy. That's a lot of volume. Anyways, those are just some tips on how you can use this. And again, it's also fun. It's just kind of fun. And that only took us maybe, I don't know, 35 minutes. So also if you're in a situation where you don't have a lot of time, you want to get in, get out, it's another good option for that. So we appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.